dans la rivière rouge, quinto weekend. What I said was, good afternoon, hello, that my name is Carole LeClair, and that I am born for the Red River land. My native name is one that we normally don't share, but in my language it means soft thunder woman. Very quiet, like you're maybe in the kitchen on a spring day in April, you hear this low sound in the distance. You think, did I hear thunder? Well, maybe not. So that's the name that was given to me, my naming ceremony. Now, I brought a little banner today and some berries that I had frozen, made into a freezer jam, and bread in Michif is Waishikun, or La Galette. Now, La Galette was familiar to my mom and my family in Manitoba. And it was not so much like a baked bannock, but almost like a pancake on the top of a big black stove. And my mom was remembering that she and her oldest brother, Tom, would sit right knees close to the stove, and she would slice potato slices, put them on the top of the wood stove. And she would also do la galette, and her brother would eat them as fast as she could cut them. Well, that was something they shared together. So le pain is another name for bread, and it's good with la confiture. La confiture is almost French, but not quite. It means jam. La confiture fries strawberry jam. Now, I'm going to be using another word as we talk. Wakotomin is a Cree Michif word, and it means to weave together. So Wakotomin is just one word that embraces a whole world of concept of how to live, how to be a good human being. So we go, like Walter Cook, who was an elder here in Hamilton. What he used to say was, we go back along the trail and we pick up the things that were lost. And we put them on our sleds and we take them home. So yes, this is what this project is trying to do in a modest measure. Okay? So a lot of our Métis women, Métis girls, haven't had the opportunity to bead, to learn to bead, to wear a ribbon skirt proudly, and to learn how to make. And the obstacles for these things are monetary. These things are expensive now. What used to come very easily. So, these components are not crafts. They're symbols of our philosophies. When an elder, a teacher like Bev, talks about her beading and what she puts on her cup, what she wears, these are all remnants of our history, our past. Yeah. Now I'm going to tell you what Maria Campbell wrote in Eagle Feathers News of 2007. It's worth quoting at length. She says, there's a word in my language that speaks to these issues. These issues being how we live in the world contemporarily today. Wakotoin is the word. One word that contains a word. So today, when you see it, is translated to mean kinship, relationship, family, and human, as in human families. But at one time, she says, from our place, it meant the whole of creation, going. And our teachings taught us that all of creation is related and interconnected to all things within it. We're welcoming and honoring and respecting those relationships. They are our stories, our songs, our ceremonies, and our dances that taught us from birth to death our responsibilities and reciprocal obligations to each other, human to human, human to plants, human to animals, to the water, and especially the earth. And in turn, all of creation has responsibilities and reciprocal obligations to us. All of creation has a relationship, has responsibilities to us. Within our communities, we continue the work of past generations to carve places no longer the road allowances. Now, when my mother was a girl, when we lost our land by the influx of settler nations, and we were able to put together log shacks along the allowances of the roads that were beginning to be built. And we stayed there for almost 50 years until that was outlawed as well. So I want to say, learning to recapture aspects of our worldviews through understanding the meaning and the histories of our beadwork and our ribbons images, hands-on way of knowing and strengthening our connection with ancestral pride and belonging. One of the ways I think that we keep that, hold on to it, pick up those things along the side of the road, is to preserve our family stories, because they contain description of the world we lived in. One of the stories that I cherish was of my great-grandfather, Julien Dupé, and he had a piece of land that went down to the river. And on that land there was a wolf who came to inspect his chickens. And he decided he would go out with his rifle and warn off or shoot this wolf. He had a dog. It was a big, kind of a collie-type dog, female. And she followed him everywhere. She never left his side. She was with him constantly. So as he went out into the bush, brush near the river, she was there. And you know, it's a wonderful thing that we remember her name. Her name, 100 years later, maybe more than that. Anyway, Julien, he had his rifle and he spotted that wolf and he shot him. Mostly to scare him off, but he got him. He winged him. And the wolf lay down, asleep, unconscious. And Julien went and picked him up and slung him over his shoulder. Both feet on both sides, slung him over. And he was walking with him. Wolf pelts were better. So he was walking back to his place when suddenly the wolf came alive again, regained consciousness, and started to scratch and bite. And Julien is there with this wolf on his back. And he called him, Carole, Carole, come, help me, Carole. And of course, she wasn't too far away, and she jumped on the wolf, and there was a battle, but Julien arrived home safely. The pelt was a little scuffed up, but he was safe and alive. And whenever I think of Carole, I think of the honor and the connection between other than human beings, and how important that is to us as Métis people, as Indigenous people.
My name is Beverly McEwen. My maiden name is Poitras, and that's quite a common Métis name from the Red River Valley. So my grandfather was Cree, French Métis, and my grandmother was Ojibwe, French, Irish Métis. So there were, my dad's family were two Métis families that got together, which was quite common out there, and that's how the Métis Nation in the Red River came to be formed. Ani Boujou, Beverly Indigenous Idash Bebani and Dugaye, Penticton, British Columbia and Dujaba, Minwa, Guelph and Dijida. Minwa ni Red River Wisikadawekwe. So I'm Beverly McEwen. I'm originally from Penticton, British Columbia, and I live in Guelph now, and I'm also retired. Well, it's an honor for me to begin your beading journey with you. And I'd like to thank Carole and Lynn for inviting me to do this. Now, I'm beginning my instructor's in beading journey today with you, so bear with me. In my past life, I did do some teaching at the university level, but beadwork is different. And I think it is very much a journey. And as Carole said, maybe it starts out as a craft and something you'd like to do. Like, we'll make some pins. That's our plan, is to make an orange shirt pin for September 30th, and then a beaded poppy for Remembrance Day. But it becomes, I hope, and beading will take you on your own journey. But for me, it's become a way to connect to my culture. It's a way to learn about the plants and nature around it. As you'll see, the Métis, Red River Métis beadwork has a lot of flowers and interlacing tendrils and different roots of things and leaves. And so I think it's the way that you could interconnect with nature as well. You'll hear people say beading is medicine. And it's a very, once you kind of get started, I mean, there are, like anything you learn for the first time, it can be frustrating. It feels like you've got, your hands are made up of 5 thumbs each. But I think once you get that, it can become very meditative and healing. It's just a very lovely way to spend some quiet time with yourself and your thoughts, or it's a very community-oriented art form as well, so that you can join in with a group of people and bead and listen to stories. I hesitate to call it a hobby or a craft or something like that. To me, it's artwork, and it's very spiritual. Indigenous peoples before used to decorate their clothing or outfits with shells. Porcupine quills were quite common, and they would dye them with natural dyes. So you'll see a lot of quill work, maybe on birch bark or on hide. And so once the beads came, they were very brightly colored, colors you ordinarily don't see, so that the Métis women took to that, as did other Indigenous women. But what happened, I think, because of the French Catholic influence and the influence of the Grey Nuns from Quebec, they would teach the young Métis women embroidery. And so they would embroider what they did in Europe, which was flowers. So this is how the Métis women, how they started, because they started with the embroidery, but then they adapted it to beads, and eventually the Métis became known as the flower beadwork people, because they incorporated a lot of flowers and a lot of nature. And when you compare that, say, to Sioux or Southwestern beading, you'll see maybe in some of those it's very geometric. There's triangles and teepees and very often very straight lines of beads. So it's a different type of beading. And Haudenosaunee beading would be great to see some. I haven't actually seen some in person, but it's often raised, so it's a little bit different than Métis beading. So I think every culture and community has adapted it to their own nature, to their own culture. So you should have, let's start, a beading mat. It's kind of a soft plush piece. You will have beads. So there's orange beads, red beads, black beads, and purple beads. So the orange and black we'll be using for our orange shirt, and the red and black, or possibly purple and black, or purple and red and black, we can use for our poppy. And maybe you'd like to explain the significance.
When we were buying the beads, we were thinking about the purple poppy. Now, I feel that the purple poppy is meant to be worn alongside or adjacent to the red poppy when it's time to honor our veterans of the wars. But the purple poppies are intended to honor the animals that served in the war. Horses, dogs, all the living beings that were caught up in these global sacrifices of life. Because we are part of the animal world. You know, they train these giant Australian rats to sense the underground mines, yes.
And you have carrier pigeons as well.
Yes. Now you're thinking carrier pigeons, yeah. What else? Anybody know any?
There were mules.
Mules, yeah. Sure. See, what it is Wakotawin.
Yes.
You know, every living being is connected to one another. And there were some pretty important animals that survived.
So, and you will have beads, you will have several needles, thread, beeswax, which is important. And the reason why we use beeswax is to keep the thread from tangling. A few templates on beading felt. There's one orange shirt and there's two poppies, one for purple and one for red. There's pins for the backs of the pins for the brooches. And there's deer hide that you got at on the reserve land. Beautiful deer. This is lovely. And we will use that for backing our beadwork. There's lots of different things that we can bead on too. So what you have is stiff felt, and you can feel it, like it's got some resistance to it. There's the pattern on it, but you need that because with the beadwork and the threads, you don't want it collapsing on itself. So you can bead directly on hide, but it's often or on wool or birch bark. I have some birch bark earrings back there, but it's very good to have a backing because otherwise it'll come. Okay, so to start, there's a couple of different ways to put your beads on. So we can start, pick any color you would like to work with. And the first one we'll try is this little one with the squiggles on it. it's got, so it's just to practice the different types of techniques. There's kind of 2 arcs and 2 straight lines.
My grandfather, he had to have boiled black tea in a teapot on the stove, and he had a wood stove. And it could take the enamel off your tongue. It had to be hotter than Hades and blacker than black, because that's how we drink tea.
There's 2 very long needles, and these are good for picking up beads, and then the short one is good for if you're doing 2 needle technique. So there's the 1 needle technique, which we'll start out with, and then I can show you the 2 needle. The other thing that we tend to do is wax your thread. So you pull it through one of the little holes. And then what I tend to do is just warm it up with my fingers, so I run my fingers down that so you don't get little lumps and bumps. So I just pour a few beads, and as somebody said, as many as you feel like picking up on the floor, because sometimes if you keep doing this, they'll end up on the floor. So we'll practice on a straight line. So you go up from behind on the line, and pull it through. And then what I would do, why don't we just start with, we'll start with 2 beads to start. So put 2 beads on your needle, as everybody do, and run them all the way down. Yeah. So they're sitting on that line. So then you put your needle down on the line, back through the felt and the paper. Then what you do, so you've got the two beads there, come up between them on the line, and it helps to hold it, to steady them with your thumb. So we're up through beads 1 and 2, and then what we do is go through the second bead, not back towards the first one, but the second bead through the hole. You go the direction you're going. Okay, so it's like you're always progressing. You're walking down the street. You're not backing up. Okay, so then, is everybody okay? So pick up another 2 beads. 1 and 2. And put those down. So 4 on the line, so you put the other 2 down, go down just like you did for the first 2, in front. And if you find, like these are square edges, which is how often I cut out if I'm doing things. If you find your thread is getting caught on the edges, just round them off, and then it won't get so caught. And so then you come up between beads 3 and 4. I brought some different kinds of beads because, as you'll see, these beads come in different sizes and shapes and types and makes. These would be check beads, and their size is 10/0. So people refer to them as size 10 seed beads or round beads. The higher the number with beads, the smaller the bead. So you can go to 11s and 13s and 15s, and sometimes people will go with even smaller ones. But that means you need smaller needle and finer thread and fewer passes through. Okay, so what we're going to do now is thread another needle. So when I started out beading, I learned that the single needle beading technique. And there's a hybrid I'll show you as well, where you can do almost what you can.
It sounds pretty scary. Right now I'm scared.
If you go online and pull up some academic papers on the history of beads, centuries and centuries of beading history.
And they had very different meanings for the colonizers versus the indigenous people.
That's
so, you know, I think the Westerners thought that the indigenous people didn't really understand because they were willing to trade important things for the beads, but it was very important for them to have their artwork and their decoration. There was also some status within Native communities too.
Well, think of Julie Riel's jacket.
Yeah.
It's in the museum in Ottawa.
Okay, so we've got our 6 on. So you've threaded another needle and knotted it.
Yeah.
So then we're going to pick up, let's say we'll pick up 8 beads now on the needle that's going through your original bead. Put one of your needles, say the working one, we'll call this one the working one. Just stick it into your bead mat over, say, always on the left side or always on the right side. Just someplace where you know you'll always go back to that one. Now what you do, everybody's got their second needle threaded. Okay. So come up between beads 1 and 2, and then on the line, like this. And then what you do is, they call it couching or tacking down. You go over the thread between the beads, and then you try to get it back in the same hole. It's very difficult if you don't. Some people will tack down every bead when they do 2 needle beading. Most people will tack down every 2 beads. The one needle you use to pick up your beads and string your beads and put them down. And then the second needle is used to tack them down. And then after that, what we'll try to do the curved line. And I know you want to get going on your orange shirts.
Carole, did you want to say something about Orange Shirt Day?
Well, what I can say about Orange Shirt Day is the young girl that went to school wearing her ribbon skirt when she was asked to get dressed formally in, I think it was Saskatchewan, wasn't it? Yeah. She was told that that ribbon skirt was not a formal attire and that she should go home and change. So she came back to school with her orange shirt on. She didn't change her ribbon skirt and insisted, as her mom taught her, that she has the right to wear that skirt and wear that orange top as an Indigenous rebellion. Her protest and her bravery and her insistence and her family's insistence that she be able to wear what she considered to be formal shirt. We grandmother had given it to her and she was very proud of this orange shirt. So now we wear that orange shirt on Orange Shirt Day, mostly for support around the idea of how important honoring cultural iconography, representations, and not to suppress, particularly in Canada, the Indigenous ways of identifying themselves.
Well, there is another way to do single needle beading, and I can just show you that. I'll put on 6 beads. It's kind of a hybrid between single needle and double needle beading. And from where I've ended, I'm going to go backwards.
Yes.
Every 2 beads and tack those down, and then come through the whole line. Does everybody understand? Applique, this would be applique beading, where you're putting the beads on a substrate like a fabric or birch bark or hide. The other ones, the beads are just interwoven, by the threads themselves. Of course. Now with the shirt, you'll see we have a curve, and then we have straight lines. Usually Métis beadwork is symmetrical. It may not be a total mirror image, but usually it's symmetrical, so things are balanced. And as you can see with the shirt, what you have are the little creases where the lines go up to form the sleeves. So, and then the sleeves themselves. So what I would do for those is actually count how many beads you put across. It could be 3, it could be 4, say for the bottom of the sleeve. So you want to make sure the other side is the same. And I would suggest you start on a straight line. And it's up to you if you want to do 1 or 2 needle or the hybrid or try them all. So again, with Métis beading like this, usually the outlines are done first, and then you fill them in with the color. What I would suggest you do, if you want to keep practicing on the little test template, you can do that to get it down. Or you could actually start this, because now you know how to do a straight line, you know how to do a curved line. So thank you very much, everybody, and if you do have questions, that would be great.